Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Super excited to have a very special guest today, Chance McClain, who's the owner of Heritage Films. And I don't want to give anything away, so we'll let Chance share what Heritage Films is all about. But I think it's gonna blow you away. So, Chance, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thanks, Kip, man. It's awesome. Awesome. Very, very appreciative to visit with you, share who I am and what we do, and literally just get to know you even better.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, so we've had some great conversations before this, and so we thought this would be amazing to capture it here on the podcast. So maybe kind of start with your origin story, kind of comic book number one, who you are and where you came from and how you came to do it, what you're doing now, Chance.
Yeah. So I think just like anybody that works in the film business, it's very rare that they went to high school, graduated, went to USC Film School, and started producing movies. There always seems to be some crazy route to get to where you're making stuff. Um, I grew up in Houston, in Northwest Houston, in Spring, a little town called Spring, and I like telling it this way. I was everything. I peaked in high school. I was freaking class president all 4 years, multi-year letterman, multi-athlete, the lead in every play, and it was a big school, straight
Wow.
A student, just killed it, and had an academic scholarship, and went to the University of Texas in Austin, and made a 0.0 my first semester and a point 0.8 my second, and they kicked me out.
Oh my
So
word.
all of big fish in a small pond, but didn't do well in the big university. Um, Transferred to another state school and an easy school, and literally bombed again. And it turns out college wasn't my thing. But at that second school, I met a girl, and and she was like, I asked her to marry me after like 2 months of dating.
Oh my word.
Like, you're too irresponsible. I said, well, I'll join the army, and because the army will teach me to be responsible.
Hmm.
I did. I enlisted in the army, and then we got married. And then 11 days later, I went off to boot camp, and then I got
Wow.
stationed in at Fort Lewis, Washington, which like, yay, thank you for being a veteran and all that, dude. I was at Fort Lewis. I was in Seattle, Washington during grunge. It was awesome. It was like I was a medic. It was a field medic, but it was awesome time. Did my 4 years in the army, started my family, came back to Houston. I'd always messed around with music and guitars and keyboards and singing, and I ended up writing a song just for fun, just for grins, about a Houston Rocket, like the Rockets. And I was listening
Yes,
to sports radio at the time, and they played it on the air, and then the Rockets got a hold of it. So now every time Matt Bullard would make a three-pointer, they would play my song at the Compaq Center at the
that's
time.
amazing.
Totally amazing. But Matt Bullard, who's a friend and an awesome guy, very obscure forward. Well, a couple years later, the Rockets draft Yao Ming, who is this international star.
Hmm.
And I did another song, and this time it went bananas. It went viral before things went viral. It was 2003. It was on CNN, ESPN, everywhere. It got played
Jeez.
everywhere, and they would play it in the arena. And now we have this superstar, and
Yeah,
so I decided. And at the time, I'd worked various sales jobs, just winging it. And I decided at the time I was selling downhole oil field tools for National Oil Well, and I decided that I'm a musician now.
okay.
I'm a
Okay.
rapper. I'm a rap star. And so I left the sales world and the oil field world, and ended up bombing. I mean, bombing terribly as a musician. I had one song, and I don't know, terrible miscalculation on my part. But I did get hired as a creative director at a CBS sports radio station, the big sports radio station in town. So I
Okay.
found myself in radio and working in radio. So now we're in like the 2005, 2000, well, 2004, 2005. By 2007, me and a group of married guys decided that we could do this better ourselves. So we splintered off from the corporate world of CBS radio and launched an independent sports radio station. And immediately we started dominating the ratings, and we're killing it. I was the program director. I was the
That's
boss guy.
awesome.
Had a blast. Loved the radio world. During this time, I wrote oh no, I should mention that think about the era that we're in, where we're coming out of old media and we're getting into blogging, we're getting into podcasting, we're getting into video casting.
Sure.
I felt like my jocks should do all this crap. They should blog.
Uh-huh.
they should embrace all this new technology of the kind of nascent web days. I was super nerdy always into the nerd stuff. So I got into video and kind of cashed in my 401k and bought a camera and bought some stuff and ended up shooting an internet musical, which was a musical film that was a fan film. Do you remember Dr. Horrible's sing along blog?
I
It's
do not remember that.
Oh my, it was a Neil Patrick Harris and just it was this thing that Joss Whedon put together during the 2007 writer's strike. And it was this musical.
Interesting.
Well, I wrote a fake prequel to it and it was good and it got nominated for streaming awards. And so that was my first thing I
Jeez.
did in video. And I was like, gosh, I really like this video thing. Then flash forward to 2011. In the interim, I wrote a musical that played off Broadway in New York, so I was kind of scratching the musical itch. But then in
Mhm.
2011, I left the radio world to do video full time. And at the time, I was just doing, you know, put yourself in 2011. I was doing internet videos, I was doing TV commercials, I was doing anything on any screen. Somebody give me money, I'll film it.
Yeah.
Um, then a couple years later, a buddy of mine who from my radio days had a radio show and he asked me to film his dad. And I'm like, what's wrong with your dad? He said, nothing. He's turning 75 and I want my kids to know their pawpaw. Like,
Mm.
what was his life like? And I'm like, oh, okay, okay. He's like, okay, cool. He's going to be at my house tomorrow at noon. He doesn't want to do this at all. He's terrified. He's shy. Just do your best. So showed up, set the camera up, and just started asking him about, growing up, being born in Tennessee and growing up in East Texas and getting hired at DuPont and running the strip and going to the pig stand and all these old like 50s and 60s things, what his life was like. And then we pieced it all together, scanned in a bunch of pictures. Um, and that was the first heritage film that I did.
Mm.
And then he talked about it on air, and a few people tracked me down and said, "Oh my God, I want to do this." And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was like, "Oh, okay." I would just show up and talk. And um, but then about a year later, my stepdad, who is my dad, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
he tells us at Thanksgiving that like he had played 18 on the day before Thanksgiving, and on Thanksgiving we're sitting around. I lived out on some rural property. We were sitting around a campfire, drinking beer and eating hot dogs. And he's like, "Well, y'all got some bad news. I got stage 4 pancreatic cancer." That's literally how he told us. We're like,
Jeez.
"What?" I know, we all, anybody in our peer age group, we know that that's a death sentence.
Right.
And he said, "Yeah, they say 12 to 18 months. Starting chemo next week, and we'll see what happens." And we're like, "Holy crap!" Well, I had done a couple of these films, so I said, "Hey, can we film you? Can you tell your story? Because while you're my stepdad, you're the only grandpa my kids have, and
Yeah.
I want my kids to know Papa." No, Sam Paul. His name was Sam. They call him Sam Paul. So he said, "Sure." Well, I couldn't do the interview because I'm a big crier, and uh, so the radio guy, my friend Michael, ended up doing the interview, and he's like a syndicated radio host, and so cornering him down, and then cornering a guy going through chemo and radiation. It was
Mm.
tough to coordinate. So that was Thanksgiving Day. In January, my radio friend said, "Hey, I don't care what it is. This week we're doing Sam's film. So you tell me what day, whatever, we'll do it." So we filmed him on Tuesday, and he died on Sunday. That's
Oh
how
my
fast.
word.
Yeah,
Gee.
it wasn't a year. It was 2 months and 3 weeks.
Oh,
Brutal. Um, and then it was after that we were at the viewing. Maybe 5 days later, we're at the viewing, and me and the radio guy, and we're sitting out in this suburban drinking bourbon.
huh.
And he's like, "Hey," and he's a guy that's always playful and silly and youthful and silly. And it was a rare, really serious moment. And he said, "Hey, you need to give this a go. This is a business. Like you're artsy fartsy guy. You don't see it. You should do this." So I talked to my wife, and we talked about it, and prayed about it, and decided what to do. And we launched the company in that following June. That would be a 20. Well, this is our 2015. And now we've done like more than 800 films, not just in all over the country. We've got one that we're doing overseas in March. Like it's been an amazing run. There's my background. There's my origin story.
Yeah, that's incredible. I know in our previous conversations, you talked about some I mean, kind of the traditional films that you're doing, but some super unique ones where you've traveled around the globe for some like ultra high net worth
Yeah,
people. Maybe share kind of some of the most interesting ones you've done or wild and crazy ones.
yeah, man, there's just the stories that start like everything from the little old lady down the road to billionaires that have found me and decided this is something that they think's important. The thing that whether it's literally a billionaire or it's a group of six siblings that all pulled their money together to film their dad, the thing that ties them all together is they love some older person and they love their kids and they
Mm,
feel like something is missing right now and that this older generation has some secret wisdom
yes.
that they can impart to the next one, and they think that a film is the way to do it. So it's this crazy Venn diagram, and it gets down to this little bitty sliver of people that are right. But when it is right, uniformly, it is the best experience in the world for them and for us. And so yeah, what started off as just driving around Houston, and we were advertising on the radio, old school radio
Uh-huh.
advertising is how, and I still advertise on the radio. It's how people would find me. Uh, and then it turns out where somebody's mom would live in Eureka, or grandma would live in Eureka, California. So that was a unique one that we went to Eureka, and I don't know if you know, it's up in Humboldt County, and
Okay.
all I saw was California. I barely even knew how to charge for travel, and so I put like a couple grand for travel because I was like, oh, what the hell I'm doing. And it turns out that it's like a 6 hour drive north of San Francisco.
Oh,
That
geez.
renting a Tahoe, because flying all of our crap up there it ain't like $80 a day like it is in some towns. It was
Yeah.
expensive. Hotels, everything was crazy expensive. So lost money, but got to go film this lady. She was 97 when we filmed her. And I always start with some question about how far back do you know your people? How far back, what do you know? And mind you, this is in 2016 and she's 97. So she was born in like 20 or so.
Yeah.
Um, and she says, well, my great grandmother lived to be over 100. So I knew her very, very well. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she said,
Wow.
uh, sh my subject grew up in New Zealand. Um, and she goes, she was born in Scotland. And when she was 3, she was part of a big migration that went from Scotland. They either went to the US, they went to Australia, or they went to New Zealand. Well, my great grandma went to New Zealand, and that was in 1839. And I'm like,
Jeez.
dude, we just went way back in time with a firsthand knowledge of this lady had deep memories. She was born in 20, so she
Yeah.
knew her until she was almost 20 years old. And I'm like, holy crap. That same lady, I found out that the Marines, our US Marines, had like an R&R depot in New Zealand, and all the Kiwis were off fighting in World War II, leaving behind all the 16 to 25-year-old girls in New Zealand
Oh
and
boy.
all these Marine officers. So every one of them ended up hooking up with or marrying Marine officers, and that's how she came to the States. So that's a very pedestrian, regular, normal family story, but it's kind of unique in its own way.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow.
And I don't even know where, like, I don't know what's interesting to people. And there's a layer of privacy that,
Sure.
like, the audience for these films, it's their family and they choose. I don't make these films and put them out there for the world to see. They're just for the family. And so I'm a little skittish with names and things like that, unless the
Sure.
family has told me it's cool.
Yeah.
But it can't, I don't even, like, my brain freezes up. There are so damn many families that I've gone into, and I've had confessions. I've had um, like wealth that I didn't know existed that I'm driving or flying in and then driving up to this mansion, and I walk in thinking, "Oh, this guy's gonna be a douchebag. Look at this place."
Yeah.
Then you get in there, and he's a retired dentist who had practices all over the country with other dentists, and he ends up being absolutely lovely,
Uh-huh.
absolutely charming, sweet, kind. Just every time, the best people in the world, man.
Yeah. How about, and again, in our previous conversations, just you talked about like what the films are and you relate them to like, I mean, like some of these Netflix documentaries. I mean, just the high quality or ESPN films. Like maybe just tell a little bit about what
Yeah.
the film
So
is like and
I
how it's
would,
different than just like I had told you that my aunt just got a camera and did something similar with my grandma and told her stories, which was, I mean, incredible for my kids and family to, hear my grandma's stories that we didn't even know about, but that was just someone with a camera. But
yeah,
yours is a whole nother
yeah,
level of
they,
production.
they are, but I'm just grateful that the tech, like I mentioned earlier that I've kind of tried to stay on top of technology and I still do. Technology is what allows this. Like if you go back 30 years, you can't roll film unless you are loaded. You can't roll film even at 16 mil. 16 millimeter. You're gonna spend a fortune because we roll for 3 to 10, 20 hours depending on what people are doing. You can't afford that, but digital technology you can.
Mm,
And then since kind of the mid 2000s, did we have basically cinema quality digital film. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, Now, so we try to keep up with great equipment. You mentioned Netflix, you mentioned ESPN. 30 for 30 was an inspiration for me. I told you my sports background. I'm like, oh my God, these are just real stories, but they look beautiful. They wanted them.
Yes.
There's the Ken Burns style documentary, and those are great. Those are great facts. Those are great stories. Those are kind of another inspiration for me too. But that 30-30, that uh, and Netflix and HBO docs where they look beautiful.
Yes.
I believe that the aesthetics matter. The
Yeah.
content matters more than anything. And you mentioned what your aunt did with your grandmother. When people are like, oh, I want to do this, but I can't afford it, or the timing's not right, I tell them, I say, do it yourself. It'll suck compared to what I do. Get your iPhone out and just talk to her. I'll send you
Yes.
my starting questions. Like, literally, you need to do this. Because there will come a time that we don't talk about where you're going to be like, God dang it, why didn't I record that? Why didn't I?
Mm,
I'm stupid. We just do it where it looks like what you see on Netflix. That's kind of, and I like to attribute a little of Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000
yes.
hours, having done so many that I like to think that I have a knack of what matters to the families, and I want the subjects to have a blast too. I'm a big, I think I told you this, that like Walt Disney is my hero.
Yeah.
He cared so much about experience just as much as the product or the films or the parks. He wanted the experiences to be amazing. And we do that too. I want to bring a little bit of silver screen
Uh-huh.
drama into their house. I want to use the clapper. I want to do little things like that make people um, remember the day that they sat there swimming in nostalgia. And uh, and so the experience is key to that. The film's got, man, we're filmmakers. Films have to be awesome or we're
Yes.
terrible at our jobs. But on top of that, the experience should be as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long are you normally filming for and then
Hmm.
the end product, how long are the films usually?
Sure. So my target for all the films, whether they're traditional films or what we call signature films, because everybody needs a corny premium level. Uh, Target is always the same, the length of a movie, an hour to 2 hours, somewhere in
Okay.
there. And on a traditional film with like a single subject, so that means maybe dad passed away and we're going to film mom. So I'll spend a day, we'll spend a day with mom in which we want to film about 3 hours of conversation. But by the time you take pee breaks and lunch break and
Sure.
going through pictures and all that type of stuff, we want to film for about 3 hours to create an hour-ish movie. With a couple, mom and dad, we're filming both of them, their 50th anniversary, their 45th anniversary, things
Mm,
like that. Those push more towards an hour and a half to 2 hours, whereas the single persons are generally an hour to an hour and a half. And there's exceptions. I feel like there's almost more exceptions than anything. Rarely are there exceptions on the short side. Sometimes people just have insanely crazy, awesome stories, and they're good storytellers, so they push a little long. But with a couple, we do it over 2 days
okay.
where we talk with just mom. So we get there, like dad piss off, I'm talking to mom. And we talk to mom about her grandparents and her parents and her childhood, all the way up till she marries dad. And then we shoo her off and repeat that process with dad. And then the second day, we talk to all three of us visit about from the time
Mm,
they got married till today and into tomorrow and their hopes for the future and their dreams and
mm,
aspirations for their grandkids. And it's funny, I should mention more and more we've been doing films of people that maybe aren't 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years old. Maybe they're 40, maybe they're in their 30s, but they think a doc is the right way to share with their people what it is they're up to. So
Sure.
first person style, they're the subject, but they're also the client. It's a different way that
That's
you,
interesting.
yeah, it is. Especially, people fill out forms and stuff before I get there, so I know about the subject. It is a little bit different whenever the subject is the client, and it actually allows um, for more exploration of exactly what are you into. Like a regular heritage film where we film dad, we know what the deal is, we know the drill. But when it's for themselves, do we want to lean more into your work stuff? Do we want to lean into your personal background? Do we, where are we? And they get to kind of play the role of EP of executive producer as
Huh.
well as the person in the film. So those are and through that route, there's been all these business journeys and
Yeah.
founders. Like I have a card. I don't have one up there, but it says personal documentary films for families and founders. We've been
Hmm.
doing so many. Easier way to say it rather than using all the modern jargon would be like FOBs, family-owned businesses. There's
Yeah.
been multi-generational family businesses where they want to share the story for my kid's going to run this thing someday. Let me tell them where it come from.
Yeah.
So there's that part
That's an
too.
interesting and really a good idea
Yeah, it's
for
been really.
founders.
Hmm. Definitely. You mentioned the international aspect. We haven't
Yes.
traveled internationally yet, but we've shot two legs of a film, but then the next legs are in Mumbai, Dubai, Antwerp, and London, which
That's
is all going to be one big 2 week trip, and it'll be our first time to plant the American flag in India and Belgium and
that'll be fascinating. And what's the reason for those locations? Business
the
interests or homes or kind of what's the
yeah,
backstory?
sure. My client is the son, and the film is about his dad and his mom, and all of mom's family lives in India.
Oh,
And so
huh.
this is one of the signature films where we don't just film mom and dad, but in this case, we're filming all the people that are key to mom and dad's life.
Wow.
So this type of film, it becomes more exactly like what you see. Like I'm in the middle right now of a Netflix documentary on or docu-series on Churchill. It just came out this year where they colorized a bunch of the film, and we do a bunch of that crap too. But it's where you have multiple parties, not just one single driving person delivering the
Oh,
narrative.
sure.
So what we do is we film the principal subject first and get their life story, and then we take notes on all the other characters along the way, and then we go talk to as many of those as they want us to, so that when they say, and then I got to the US in 1968 and it was freaking crazy, there's hippies and there's weed and all this stuff going on. And then I show up at, whatever, the University of Illinois and on my student visa. And then we end up talking to his college roommate from back then that they're still friends. And so you're able to get the perspective of, hey, what was Bob like? Um, and it ends up being a more full, robust, just what you see. Like literally, that's what we do. I mean, everything they do, there's a formula, man.
I'm sure.
What is the framing supposed to look like? How big is their head supposed to be on screen? Little things like that we try to make sure we nail what people are accustomed to seeing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so that one we're going in March, and we were going in November, then it got pushed. Turns out that really successful families are busy as hell.
Right. That's incredible. Are there any throughout the course of all the films, any common themes that you see people talking about in their life, whether, I don't know, regrets or
Yeah,
successes or things that made them
sure.
happy or sad, just common themes
Common
without giving
stuff.
away specifics of people, but
No, no, it's fine. I have one guy that I can share. Okay, so you end up, if you're a reader, the
yes,
books that you read, the biographies that you read, I heard this on a podcast, that those books become little mentors in your head where you get to draw
absolutely.
upon Rockefeller, you get to draw upon Elon, you get to
Yeah.
draw upon Steve Jobs as this little, well, I get to do that at a different level. Um, I would say two-thirds of our subjects are classically successful, kind of American dream successful. Maybe not yacht in a place in in southern Florida, but successful by every definition. They ran a business, they ran a company, they did well. They're retired and playing golf and having a good life. So by that definition, the other third are just. I'm not saying I still think the other third are successful, but it's a different parameter, and that's I raised a child that did well enough to buy this for me for the family,
Mm,
and thinks that my values matter. I
mm,
think that that's a successful father or mother.
yes.
The classic dad's a cop, mom's a teacher. We've done countless versions of that, who financially people wouldn't say that those are, you have reached the pinnacle of success financially. No, but you did reach the pinnacle of success in raising children that believe that your values matter to their children. So,
Yes.
so there's two things of that. Um, I did a film for a guy I can talk about. He's a farmer, but had like 5,000 acres of seed rice here in Southeast Texas.
Mm.
Very successful farmer. If you're a human, you've eaten rice that came from them. Okay, very
Wow.
successful farmer.
Okay.
Um, and his grandson called me and said, "I need to do this film." He heard about me on the radio. He said, "I need to do this film." Grandson was like 24th time. My papa is he's got pancreatic cancer, and he's not, this is in August. He said he ain't going to see Christmas, and we got to do this now. So we're
Wow.
like, okay, cool. So we throw out the rule books and all of the scheduling calendar, and we like to shoot a couple months out. We're like, cool, let's figure out. So we ended up shooting on a weekend. It ended up being 3 days that we went and filmed. And this guy, I'm a Protestant guy. He's Catholic.
Uh-huh.
This man, his name's Jacko, and I
Huh.
show up, and he becomes a mentor. He becomes a real mentor. I buried the ending already. He beat it. He beat the cancer. He
Oh,
beat stage 4 pancreatic. He was supposed to be dead in 4 months, and he
oh
beat.
my gosh.
He's since passed away, but he lived 5 more years, and over the years became one of those little mentors on my shoulder. We just clicked. He gave me some lessons that I don't know. They're going to sound real obvious, but maybe they weren't to me. Like years before, his wife had gotten cancer, and we actually weren't filming at this time. We were just sitting there. He was like scrolling through his iPhone while we're on a break or whatever. And he had just told me the segment about instead of getting up at 5 to do farmer things, he was getting up at 3 to do his wife's farmer wife things.
Oh,
And I'm
wow.
like, I
Mm.
said, I said, dude, you must have been tired. And he's looking at his phone and he's like, what does tired have to do with anything?
Huh.
And I'm like, okay. He's like, yeah, I was tired, but I got it done. A couple hours later, we're talking. Oh, pardon me. The next day, show up and he's asking me just cordially, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Man, I'm just busy as hell, dude. I'm busy." And he said, "Busy? Don't you own your own business?" I said,
Huh.
"Yeah." He's like, "That's a blessing, Chance. You should say I'm busy with a smile." And I'm like, "God
Yes.
dang, that's awesome, awesome." So then later that day, um, similar situation. He's a farmer. Life is freaking impossible. They have to deal with crap that
Yes.
your mind. So I literally said on film, I'm like, dude, that just sounds hard. And he said, what does hard have to do with anything? And then he kind of went on a little tirade. He's like, look, man, busy, tired, hard, those are just adjectives for things I'm going to get done.
Hmm.
He said, I challenge you to never use those words to describe your condition. Busy, tired, hard. Never. If you tell somebody that, what are you doing? Are you injecting anything positive into the world? Are you
Right.
pity? Your life's hard. You want pity from your friend? You want pity from this new guy you just met? And I would challenge you to do it. It's almost said it right there. It is, you are going to be blown away by how often you say, I'm tired, I'm busy, or I'm hard, and try
Uh-huh.
not to. So that's a lesson that I learned from Jacko. The year that he passed away, it was last year. My wife and I, he had a place in a little town in deep, I mean, 10-hour drive from Houston in Texas still,
Okay.
in Terlingua, which is this little sleepy town way, way, way west. And he had a place there. And so my wife, he said, you take your wife, go get out of town. And so that was in January that my wife and I went and had a little couples weekend at their beautiful place in Terlingua. Then he
Hmm.
passed away that summer, and his only I went to his funeral, and man, I've lost family, I've lost pets. I don't think I've ever been as sad because I felt
Mm.
like the whole community showed up for this dude, and there I was, just a face in the crowd. But man, he was awesome. Jack O'Garrett, what a freaking stud.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, his whole okay, yeah. So the whole time we're talking, or on day one, he an hour in, he's like, "This is amazing. This is great. This is the best. You got to do this with my brother-in-law Jimmy. You got to do this with my brother-in-law." I'm like, "Great." So I make a note to myself. The salesman is like, "Okay, contact brother-in-law Jimmy." So towards the end of day one, he gets to talking about his baby sister who goes off and gets married to Jimmy
Okay.
Baker. James A. Baker III, the former Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury,
Really?
and Jacko is a man of his word extraordinaire. He linked us up and explained everything, and we ended up doing Secretary Baker's heritage film, and it was
That's
amazing.
amazing.
He's a gentleman. What a dude, man! What you take off the TV lights, take off the TV cameras, and get to where the people are, and man, he's still kicking, still doing great. Secretary Baker's we got to be 93, 94, and just kicking ass right now.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
That's wild. And that you kind of led into the next question. Is it common that you do a film for somebody and they're like, well, you should really do this for X, Y, and Z, and it just kind of snowballs from there, whether it's in a family or a friend group or something like
Multiple,
that?
yeah. I think we ran the numbers. We're in the middle of running them, but we're around a third of our films, between a third and a half. You know what? Let's do this again at the first of the year, and I'll tell you exactly. I'm
Okay.
quite good with numbers. Between a third, call it 40%, are either referral or multiple for the same family.
Sure.
Like where they did grandma and grandpa, and then they're like, "Gosh, I got to do mom and dad," or great uncle, like, "Oh my gosh, this person." Where, and again, I think the films are great. And when I started making them, I thought it was for posterity. I thought people were like, going to get this. We've got a store. We put it in the safety deposit box. When Paul dies, we can watch and hear his life story. But that is just not how they have. That is not how it worked out at all. There's a business that you plan, the business you build, and the business that actually exists.
Right.
The one that exists doesn't even look remotely like the other two. Now I've got, yeah. So I think I answered that. I don't know.
Yeah. How about any other advice that you've gotten or people have said in their films? I mean, you obviously mentioned some there from Jacko,
Jacko.
but any other just advice that has stuck with you that people have said?
The most simple, the easiest way to answer that is all the old wives' tales are true.
Mm.
All
Huh.
the most simple advice, the things like the golden rule, things that come out of Proverbs, whether you're religious or not, the things that come out of Proverbs tend to be exactly true.
Yes.
And the older the information, the more solid it is outside
Hmm.
of the realm of science. In all things life, and the older the wisdom, the better. Um,
Yes.
I can tell you on a business front, because this is more of a business style. I can tell you that something I've learned from doing countless people that grew up in an agrarian lifestyle on a
Mhm.
farm, on a ranch. Lots of ranches in Texas, farms in Texas, but all
Right.
over the Midwest, all over your neck of the woods, these old family farms, these boomers that grew up on the farm and had a hard work ethic and ran a paper route when they were 12, who then left the farm to go seek industry, commerce, start their own business. These guys are so freaking successful, and
Hmm.
no single one of them has distilled it down to why are there so many, particularly Midwesterners, that have gone on to become classically successful. Told me I don't even know, just a regular, just a farmer, just a dude, corn and Milo and and I was really trying to drill down on why are so many of you rednecks successful, you guys that grew up on the farm, why, what is the common ground? Because, oh, is it because you work harder? Is it because you know what it's like to work hard and you know what it's like to do without because you grew up poor on a farm? And he says, no, no. it's because we learn to think in bigger cycles than city folks. And I'm
Mm,
like, go ahead. He's like, well, take the cycle of whatever we're growing right now, and we're going to be growing this again next year. But between now and then, we're going to cycle the crop to put a different thing there because when the refuse from that one dies, it turns into the seed and feed for the next one. And he starts
sure.
going through this long annual cycles. So put that in my little pocket right there. And then they also have to deal with things right now because of
Hmm.
scarcity and the tractor broke. So we got to get a coat hanger and some duct tape, and this tractor's got to work right now.
Yes.
So there's innovation mixed with long, long cycles. Okay, now I did a film in Portland for a lady who was, I don't know, the word heiress comes to mind, but that's the wrong word. Her family had been in timber since the early 1800s.
Okay.
and and she talked about the cycles that timber farmers deal in. They're not
Mm,
dealing with a 1 year,
right.
they're dealing with 40-year cycles. And so they're dealing with multi-generational. I am doing this so that my son can tend to it and my grandson can cultivate it.
Mm,
It can put it to market. And so the lesson to answer your question out of all that, the takeaway lesson is to think in terms of much, much larger cycles than this week, this month, this quarter, and try to see the bigger trends that we
yes.
learn from farmers.
That's very good.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
have my whole dad's side of the family is from the little town in Iowa, Dyersville, where the Field of Dreams is.
Oh, no,
Uh,
yeah, of course.
yeah. And all my cousins grew up on a farm, I mean, really close to the Field of Dreams. And one of them still runs the farm, and others are doing other things in ag, but still supporting farmers. And I can totally relate to those stories you just told and those lessons because that is absolutely how they think. And I mean, and I grew up in the city, so totally different, but I can really, especially now being older, really appreciate that.
I would say that city people have some advantages that agrarian people don't.
Hmm.
Um, I think there's a different level of interdependency. When you're on a city, you have to trust people a little bit more.
Sure.
Uh, I think your communication skills are going to be superior to most. I mean, go all the way down to the accent. I forget who the comic was, but he's like, "Why does every redneck sound the same? If they're from Minnesota, they talk like this. If they're from East Texas, they talk like this. If they're from Bum Bleep, Alaska, they talk like this." Well, I think there may be something to that.
Right. Oh, for
uh,
sure.
that skills, and I think the people that are missing out the most on both of those is the suburbanites, which is like most people.
Sure.
Most people now grow up in the suburbs where we don't have the benefits of the big city interdependency,
Hmm.
nor the benefit of the individualism that is inherent in farming and big ag. So we're just kind of in the middle, and we all end up selling pharmaceuticals or whatever.
That's a very interesting point. I mean,
Yeah.
I lived in the city forever, uh, and you see all your neighbors and you know everybody, and then moving into the suburbs, a handful of years ago, and it's a lot quieter. You don't Your neighbors aren't just out in the yard all the time, and you just don't see and talk to all your neighbors like you do when you're in the city. It's very different.
Maybe the glass half full, if I try to be an optimist, the glass
Yeah.
half full is maybe suburbanites can get the best of a little bit of both. They can change the flat tire because dad made them get out there and do it like a redneck would or like a farmer would. But they also have pretty good social skills and know their way around MySpace back in the day.
Yeah, right. How about in your business? I mean, you talk about the evolution of film and digital. What any future trends or just new things you're trying to inject or offer to your clients as you're making these films to make them, I don't know, different or more innovative, or just kind of how do you think
Yeah,
about
what a
those
great.
and or even cycles in your business?
I don't know about cycles. You would think Christmas would be a big cycle where we get busier, but we're pretty much keyed to when's dad turning 75, when are
Sure.
mom and dad having their 50th. So and I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that. There is a boost at Christmas time. But not, it's not like we're not a fireworks stand that only does business twice a year.
Right.
Um, I don't know why I thought of that. but as far as the technology, perhaps I can answer it a tangent of that is
Sure.
I've very much gotten in bed in the AI world where
Hmm.
I'm trying to learn everything I can about it. Like we had this about 2 years ago, we started to say, hey, we can make digital grandma because we've got, 5 hours of her talking. We know all of her stories. We can put it in there and do an 11 labs, train the voice, and you can mix an 11 labs API with even a chat GPT or anybody else, and boom, you've got digital grandma that a kid can talk to grandma forever. And then we decided that was too gross.
Yeah.
And I'm like, gosh, no, I don't. I want real grandma, not digital grandma. But a way that we have leaned into AI a lot is in prep and
Okay.
actually in production. So as recently as 18 months ago, my prep was the families would fill out forms. There's a brief bio, like 20 questions: birthday, birthplace, schools they went to, probably predictable favorite pets over the years. Like, read this. Okay, I kind of get who this person is. And then all the people that love them can fill out a form. Hey, make sure grandma talks about this. Give up the cookie recipe, like all the way
Yeah.
down to what was it like going to high school in the 40s? Whatever it is, there's the family weighs in on what's important to them. So I would get like 10 family members to fill stuff out and then have this bio. And then my client, the person that's giving me money, they have a different form. I'm like, hey, bro, this is your film. What do you want? What is the tone? Do you want humor? Do you want serious? Do you want this to be all nostalgic? Do you want it to be deep history, genealogical, like a mathematical version? What the hell do you want? Blend all that together and we make the film. Well, 18 months ago, I'm I'm printing PDFs like printer and circling. Okay, this is this, and uh, and then I put all my notes and I put them on an iPad, so I have all my notes to go do my interview. I try to memorize everything so that I'm not distracted, so that I'm eye contact the whole time. But some of these families, there's no way, so I've got notes. Well, as ChatGPT, Claude, all these models lately, Notebook LM on Google have grown in sophistication and reliability. So now I still do basically the same thing, but I take all these PDFs of the forms that get filled out and I put them into a dedicated AI that I have trained with, here's what I need.
Huh.
So I literally just say, create producer's guide, and it produces it all. And I'm able to use that to compare to mine. And it's a time saver on the pre-production side. On post-production, I'm just going to keep using grandma. I don't know why. I'm hooked on grandma right now. On the post-production side, I'm not me. The producer is not in the film, so I do an interview in a way that the producer is not in it. So I try to ask, much like you do in your podcast, I want open-ended questions. I have the book right. Let me get it. What the hell?
Sure. Absolutely.
That's my company.
How to win friends and influence people. Dale
Yeah.
Carnegie. Perfect.
Dale Carnegie method. Ask short questions with long answers. That's boom. That's that whole book. Short questions, long answers. People are gonna like you.
Yes.
So I try to do that. Well, for years, if I ask grandma about her dad, and she says, "Oh, he was amazing. Before I was born, he played minor league baseball and almost got a chance to go to the pros." Well, in edit, it gets to my editors, and all they hear is he was amazing. He played minor league baseball, and we don't know who the hell he is. So in the past, we would have to search through grandma and find the word dad and find a way to make it work.
Oh,
Dad was amazing. And you could sometimes hear the little dad was amazing, to be wrong.
okay.
Well, AI now and the voice model training, now we can train grandma's voice and literally type the word dad. And it'll say, Dad was amazing. In certain words, the lips don't matter. He was amazing. Dad was amazing. You can use both. But other times, it'd be obvious. Mom, you have lip movement, so it doesn't work. Mom looks way different than she. So we have to have B-roll. We have to have a picture. We have to have something to cover that with.
Huh.
Anyway, that's the way that we've embraced technology at present. And there's audio, there's video. We use the AI that's involved in Photoshop for us to help pictures is just tremendous. We can take these old battered pictures, and you always want to see it in its battered form because that's real. But we
Yeah.
also we'll do you see some old piece of crap 1913 picture. and then it'll morph over the course of 12 seconds into what it what it would have looked like the day it was taken. Uh,
Wow.
Little things like that that we try to snazz them up with.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
Oh, where are you normally shooting these? Are you in just
they're
sitting down
home.
in people's homes or is it
Yeah,
different locations or how do you do it?
home or business. We've done some in studios, but the ideal place is go to their house. That is where they're most, well, at home, obviously, literally at home. They're more, the better way to say it, they're more apt to be themselves in their own living room. And the analogy I like to use when I'm talking to somebody on the phone, trying to convince them they need to do this is, look, if your mom's got pee in her own house, she'll be like, can we take a break? Because she's the master of her domain.
Right.
In your house, she's a guest in your home because you
Yeah.
want to fly her to Houston instead of flying me to Iowa.
Mm.
She's going to sit there having to pee
Yeah.
and, and be talking to me and start getting squirmy. And if I don't pick up on a nonverbal clue that this lady's got to take a leak, we're going to have the film won't be as good as it could be. So we
Sure.
try to go to their home, their place. Generally speaking, if people have a lake house or a retreat home, some type of family communal, like all the family together has this one house, well, there's lots of positive memories and joy
Sure.
there. That
Yeah.
ends up being a good place too. A lot of the
Yeah.
gentlemen I do, attorneys, architects, um, recently retired or still working, they want to shoot at the office. They do, and we're like, okay, cool. That's probably where dad is most dad, you
Right.
know?
Probably spend most of their time. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, there's the biggest lesson. The biggest takeaway is there's no substitute for presence.
Mm.
And and all the films I've had, that's the most common refrain from these quote successful dads, even though their kids love them and say, I want my kids to learn from my dad. Dads still say, I wish I had been there more,
Mm.
with one exception. I had this one guy who just again, super successful dude. Son hired me, and dad, I have a certain way that I ask that question about basically, do you wish you were at home more? Because I see you were traveling internationally while your kids were growing up.
Yeah.
And so I asked that question in my own way, and he's like, I've thought about that a lot. I've talked about it at church, and no, no, I don't. I mean, I guess I wish I'd seen him more, but the fact of the matter is that I changed the trajectory of this family for generations, and somebody had to do it.
Uh-huh.
That's honest, dude.
Uh-huh.
That's like, and he did. He did. They went from a regular poor family to more in the yachts and planes people.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, but nobody else has ever said it out loud. I know I can think of a couple people that I'm like, he's lying to me. He feels like he's supposed to say he wishes he was there.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's interesting.
hmm
How about
Yeah,
for you? Oh, go
there's a
ahead.
bunch of things that in a normal filmmaking world we don't do. It's probably easy makes my job easier. When you're making a regular film, documentary, narrative, anything, you literally want the biggest audience. You're like, I'm making a film. I want people to see my art. And so you just kind of back further and further out until you have the broadest audience appeal, make it as beautiful as possible, tell a real story, and launch it into the world. And then you want to get eyeballs and attention, and that's success. Money comes with that, right? Well, mine, I don't. I mean, there are some films that I've made that would be curious to any human being.
Huh.
Any human being on earth would be like, that's just this old man down the street. Are you kidding me? Prisoners. Oh my God. Well, but my audience is the family, and they get to choose who they want to see it. And I know that going in. It allows me to get way more granular. There's tears that we laugh, we cry.
Uh-huh.
That's part of the job. And it's my scaling problem is finding somebody to do what I do that I trust to send into grandma's house.
Sure.
It's a pinch point that my wife and I are dealing with it right now. We finally got another sales guy that it's now not just me doing the sales. I have somebody else, and of course, I should have done it 8 years ago because he
Right.
is far more successful than me. I like making movies. I don't like selling them.
Right. It's usually the case. How
Yeah.
about for you, like looking back on yourself, any particular decision or action you you would say that's been most pivotal in your success or making the decision to do what you're doing now?
I Great question. I would not I would not have been able to do what I'm doing now if I didn't get burned and F up so many other careers, not jobs. I had careers. I was in the army and I was a good soldier and I loved it, but my wife hated it. But I was happy. I would have been a career soldier and I would have been happy.
Uh-huh.
Then when I was doing sales in a couple different industries, I was very connected with the right people on a great trajectory, um, but distractible and got into the music stuff and I chased glory. So I lost that career. In fact, one of my best friends right now, who I was working with at the time, he's now the CEO of a big oil company. So
Huh.
I could have, I'm glad I didn't, but I could have done that world. And then you flash forward to get into radio, and climbing in radio did great success in radio. The Broadway stuff, the music, the musical, the film musical and the Broadway musical, both of those things were like, I'm going to do, this is my new, it all looks like somebody that's like ADD distracted. Um, and none of it made the army. Yeah, none of it made sense until maybe my 30th, 40th film, where they were still kind of just gigs to me. Like I didn't realize that they were important. They were just, whew, I can pay my mortgage. um, but I started realizing that people would talk about stuff, and I'd be like, oh, this guy's talking about upstream oil. I used to sell downhole tools. I speak oil. I speak oil. I'm in Texas, and I can speak the oil
Mm,
world. So that's good. Oh, this guy's a veteran. Veterans will open up to veterans, and the fact
sure.
I didn't serve in war, but the fact that I that I enlisted in the army means something to these guys, and they'll open up with me. Anyway, there's lots of little things like that where these different. I would not have been able to do this if I didn't have this crazy background.
Sure.
The most pivotal, can't say that word. The most pivotal thing that happened to me was about 3 years in, still reading Walt Disney stuff, um, and he was as obsessive as Steve Jobs on quality, on it has to be great. There's a story about when he was building Disneyland where he wanted a specific type of trim in a carriage on the inside of the carriage that the public couldn't see.
Uh-huh.
And the guy building it's like nobody can see this. We're just going to use some quarter round down there. And he's like, no, 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 that's wrong. I'll know it's there.
Hmm.
Well, reading that made me realize that while I will stand by every film we've ever made as we satisfy the clients, I would think that I changed my mind and I said, I don't care what it is. You're going to have to claw these out of our hands until they're as great as they can be because
Uh-huh.
we can always do better. We can always do better. We can always do better.
Yes.
That was a huge day to me when quality became more important than anything. And then another couple years later, my wife had read, we read Traction, the
Uh-huh.
book. And my takeaway from that is build systems. You can't
Hmm.
grow if it's just you. And I don't want to be the mad artist. I don't want to be that one guy surrounded by a bunch of people doing his bidding. I've learned to hire people, bring people on that care desperately about their lane, and let them spaz out on their lane, and let me go focus on becoming a better interviewer, and then now becoming a better business operator. So that's I don't know. I think that answered.
Oh, that's very good. How about any advice that you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur or someone, whether it's a young up and comer or someone coming out of another career as you did, coming
Mm,
into something new to start their own thing? Any advice you'd give to a new entrepreneur?
man, so many, you get conflicting reports when you talk to successful people in their 60s to hundreds,
Yeah.
where some of them will say chase your passion, and I think that's good advice for the most part. I feel like I did for a lot of years, chase my interest, but they feel like in retrospect, it felt like chasing a dalliance. It's like
Huh.
chasing a chasing a girlfriend when you're already married. Um, the better advice, and this doesn't come from me, it's you're inherently good at something and you know what it is, and whether you like it or not, you're good at it. Do that. That would be that would, and it's contradictory to other people, but I find that the people saying Go do what you're passionate about. Have happened to have been successful at what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
My son is not going to be a freaking professional Fortnite player. I he doesn't play Fortnite. He has a successful company. I use it as a, kids,
Sure.
young people, they're going to chase things that they misconstrue passion, what they're passionate about for what they like. Maybe that's a better way.
Hmm.
Maybe find out what drives you, what in the or the line, what can you not do? What can you not do? I forget how they'll say it.
Yeah.
What makes you crazy? What I have to do this. That becomes not this is going to bring me joy. It's I have to do this. That's what I would tell entrepreneurs. You feel it in you. And if you don't, give yourself to somebody else in that space. Right? I mean, if I had an analogy, I would share it. To turn your hobbies, I turned all my hobbies into careers. Radio,
Uh-huh.
I mentioned sports radio. I was freaking faxing into the sports radio station with jokes and stuff. I turned it into a career. Film turned it into a career. But but it was just a hobby until I rolled my sleeves up and said, I have to get great at this. I have to get great. And the getting great period is years and it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
You got it. But I was willing to. I wanted to do this. And so it's boring but necessary. And maybe young entrepreneurs should do that more. And by the way, I've seen the other side of it. I think we read all the same type of stuff, and I've heard the counter argument to this, and I'm not even arguing against it. I'm saying what I've witnessed talking to well, about 1,000 old people.
Yeah.
Somebody called me the old man whisperer.
So this question I ask a lot of guests, but this literally is your business. So I'm interested to hear your frame or lens on this. But how are you working to build lasting legacy through your business? Or how do you think about building legacy, doing what it is that you do with Heritage Films?
See that chair?
Yes.
That's where my daughter sits.
Huh.
She graduated from Texas A&M last year,
Go
got married.
Aggies.
Yeah, go Aggies. She got married. She graduated on Saturday, got started working with me on Monday, and got married 3 weeks later.
Oh my word.
Been just over a year, and we're totally different people. I'm a bit more of the extrovert guy, and she's a bit more of the introvert. She graduated college, I didn't. Um, but that my legacy. I want this to be multi-generational. I think everybody in the world should do this. And right now I'm at a price point that starts at 10 grand and goes up. I want to get good enough that I can go down because I swear I think everybody should do this. Even people with jacked up backgrounds should do this because
Uh-huh.
the way I like to describe it, again, I told you this before we got on the film. If you can't do it, get your iPhone out and do it yourself. It'll suck compared to what we would do, but do it. Do it, do it, do it, do it. Because eventually your kids or their kids are gonna get curious about where the hell they came from, just like you did, just like I did at around 20, and then again at around 40, where I'm like, man, what the hell is this world about? Who am I? Who are my people? What Everybody goes through it. Well, you get to be the one that provides an actual resource from as close to the past as you have, and that's the most senior person in your universe right now. And adoption, biology of it doesn't matter. You're Because we deal with lots of adopted families, and they're always like, "Well, man, it's not really." Dude, is that your papa? Is that your grandpa? Well, yeah. Okay, then shut up. We're filming his story. You
Uh-huh.
know.
Uh-huh.
Um, so my legacy would be I want this company to go and grow and more people and more people and more people to realize that oh, I'll tell you another one. Just talk to older people and don't kid glove them. Don't don't talk to a grandma like she's a baby. Grandma,
Uh-huh.
what are you making over there, No, no, no. These people are insane. They were just as tawdry and haughty when they were young, or worse. They just use different language. Like when your great grandma, oh yeah, great grandpa was courting. Come on, you know what was going on. Acknowledge, talk to them like people.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah. But the legacy of this is I want my daughter and my son who has his own company. I'd love to smash them together eventually and have one thing moving forward.
Yeah.
My wife
That's
works with me.
amazing.
My daughter works with me. My family. My son worked with us for a while, and then he started his own thing. But he'll come back.
Yeah. That's amazing. We were just on the talk to old people. We were just at our Christmas Eve Christmas celebration with my family. We were just talking about how people get to a certain age and all of a sudden they are curious about their parents or their grandparents and like this acknowledgement, yeah, they did grow up and they were young and they did have a whole life that I don't know anything about. And was I just, I don't know if it's like a selfishness until you get to a certain age and then maybe you're more settled and then you can look beyond yourself and realize this, but and it seems like at least there's one person in every family that just gets super dialed into the genealogy and the heritage and like tracing the family back. And my aunt is the one that did it for us, and I mean created this leather bound book going way back to Ireland and where our ancestors came from. And but yeah,
I'll
I
ask
mean,
you.
yeah,
It matters to you for some reason, doesn't it?
yes,
I don't know. It's certainly not rational. It's not a rational thing, but
yeah,
you can't. It absolutely matters. It
people,
absolutely
yeah,
matters, and I don't know why, but I know that it does.
yeah,
I like to think of the genealogy side of it, and we've had films that are basically genealogically oriented. In fact, we had one 2 weeks ago where they had a 40-foot butcher paper, 40 by 12 family tree going back to 1675 with pictures or pictures of paintings of all these different. I'm like, dude, we had to put it outside and we filmed it with a drone. We had to.
that's unbelievable.
Set the drone like a typewriter filming it. But anyway, I know, sorry. Everyone's weird. What I was going to say is I think of the genealogical side of it, if we can go back to where this conversation started, which was high
Yeah,
school. Genealogy side of it is like math and sciences. It's the analog side of, and this year this happened, and this year this happened. I like to think of the Heritage Films approach or the book. People have done. We don't do books, but if they call and want to do a book, I have a place where I send them.
sure.
Uh, I literally just want them to get what they want. I want them to get what they want, and if it's a book, then dude, this is the best people to use. So it's the English side. So math, genealogy, English, heritage films, or a similar product that is story based, not
Yes.
data based, but story based. Um, and you really need, I think when you have both of those, you have a more rounded picture of, again, who the hell am I? Who am I? Okay, I know this, I see this. And you see, we call them echoes, which is where mom, say mom is 80 years old, she's talking about her grandma. So now you're dealing with somebody that was born in 1860 or 1870.
Huh.
Um, and her grandma did this. And then we get, later that day, we're talking about her granddaughter. And I see, mom's never pieced it, but she says something. And I was like, oh yeah, like your grandmother. And she's like,
Mm,
I never thought of that. We call those echoes because they are real.
yes,
They're real, real, real. And
absolutely.
you have to spend a day going over everything to see them because, oh, damn it, one other thing. You mentioned it's in their 20s, in your 40s, and in your 70s. Those are the three times where I've determined people go, who am I? And I want to know more about my ancestors, my people. That's when it's like retirement, where you're like, well, shit, I guess I'm almost done now. So, in your 40s, you're kind of in the middle of your career. The problem is what at those first two eras, you're you're in the middle of either getting your life going or you're in it. You got kids. You
Right.
got I gotta go to Beaumont next week. You don't have time. And you still got your hobbies. You've got your things that you're into. Unless
Yes.
you're that weird nut that their hobby is the genealogy and you're
Right.
40. Mm, genealogy is good when you're 70.
Right. Right.
For real. That's when those three times are when people get curious about their past. And the problem is there's other pangs of, oh, I wonder. And then you're like, God, I got to go to soccer. I got to take my kids.
Right. I
So you don't get
know.
a chance to scratch that itch.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Last question.
Yes, sir.
Success for you personally. How do you define success? And you can take that any direction you want.
Yeah, I would define it the way I defined it from my clients, which is I would hope that when I'm an old man, I'm 52, so I'm pretty old already, uh, that my kids come to me and say, Dad, I want I want your life story for my kids.
Mm,
Whatever it is that you did, all of our fights, all of our problems, where you ended up, um, is admirable enough that I want my kids to be able to take, or my grandkids to be able to take away some of that. That to me, and that means whether you're materially successful in money, but more importantly, it's I did a value passed down that matters. And that's true. That feels egotistical when I say it out loud. But what that is what I think is successful. And I get it from the people that hire us. Like that dude kicked ass because I now met his dad and I spent a whole day with his dad and I'm like, no wonder you hired me. Your dad is a badass. No
uh-huh.
wonder. I hope that I hope that something like that would happen with me, where Noah and Abby are like talking to their chums and they're like, my dad's a badass.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Chance, thank you so much. This has been absolutely a delight and fantastic. So I just really, really want to thank you so much. And for the audience, we will have all of your socials and website and heritage films and everything in the show notes. So if people are interested in a heritage film for their family or for someone they know, they can get in touch with you. But again, I thank you so much. This has been so much fun, and you're such a great guy and such a great character, and you're a great storyteller. So I can see how you've had success in all these other realms as well, and as well as what you're doing right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Kip. And I got to tell you, I told you this before we recorded. I can't afford you, but I will guarantee you, I will guarantee you, you would kill at my job. You
Oh,
would
you're too
kill.
kind.
You're curious, dude. All it is curious and get the hell out of the way. You are gifted, man.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, yeah. I found the people I like the most in life are people that are just curious. And these successful people, they're curious and they want to try new things. They're never settled. They always want to learn more. And going back to Dale Carnegie, it's if you have a conversation with someone and you do the listening and let them talk, and people come away from those conversations and they say, geez, I really like Chance. I love him. He's such a great guy. And you said nothing. All you did was listen to them talk. People like to talk about themselves and I always think I already know my stories and about myself. I want to learn from other people. So it's just natural to just ask questions and shut up and listen. So thanks for noticing that. But I can tell you're super gifted at that as well.
Well, I'm I certainly didn't start that way. Again, let's go back to Gladwell. 10,000 hours you learn to get the hell out of the way.
Right.
Trust people. People, trust people. There's my advice. Just there's lots of pieces of crap out there, but broadly speaking, go into it open, not skeptical, and stay pretty happy.
That's perfect. Well, it's a perfect ending. So thank you so much, Chance. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kip.
All right.